Hi, welcome to Mind Your Own Music Business. My name is Jesse Goldberg, and my guest today is Marghie Evans, spelled with an H.
That's right.
Right? It could be Harghie. No, it could Marghie, H-I-E, Evans.
Well, at least it's a hard G.
Right. And you work in publishing, administration, and music licensing.
That's correct.
Which we'll get to after we find out who you are.
Okay.
And who are you? Where are you from?
I'm from Toronto.
Right.
Grew up in Toronto. I started out as a singer-songwriter. Had a couple of singles out on RCA in Canada, but due to artistic differences, I moved over to England, ended up getting married and going to work for Polygram, where I became a licensing guru over at Polygram.
What does getting married having to do with becoming?
Well, because I decided to stay in England and not go back to Canada.
Oh, okay. So you're still married?
No, I'm a widow.
Oh, widow. Oh, sorry to hear that. So what were the singles names that you had?
One of them was Some Things Never Change, and I don't remember the other one. It was like 1980s. So.
But did you write those songs?
Yes, I did.
Were you what style was it?
It was kind of country rock. It was kind of around the time of Rosanne Cash's big album, and so I was kind of aiming for that.
Did you have a big time producer for it?
No, I just had a friend of mine produce it.
So what got you interested in the licensing now? You just got a job doing it?
Well, I went to work at a record company and ended up, that was where my talent naturally lied, or lay. In licensing. I was working for a lawyer, and I was much better at doing the deals than she was, so she said, why don't you just do it? So that's what I did.
What do you mean by doing the deals?
Well, negotiating prices. For when I was at Polygram, then we owned the footage, so I would license it out to third parties and get a good price for it.
So the idea was just like to get as much as you possibly can for the stuff.
Yes, and then do all the and I learned how to do all the contracts.
How do you know when they're going to say no, and when your price is too high, and you don't want to squash the deal, you want to get the deal? How do you know where to start with the pricing?
Well, I mean, there's normally, what things cost, and then it depends whether it's who's using it, whether it's somebody with deep pockets or just an independent person. And since in synchronization and that kind of licensing, there are no set prices, so you just have to kind of get a feel for it, and I had a feel for it.
Well, I had to do that myself, and I had to do a lot of that just with my own things, and I didn't know where to start. I didn't know whether I was going to give them too high a price or too low a price.
But I wasn't doing my own thing, so I had acts like Dire Straits and The Who. I could get a high price because they were very popular in the early.
Well, give me an example of what you mean, like The Who, like won't get fooled again or something. Or
well, yeah. So if somebody wanted to use some concert footage of The Who in a documentary,
okay,
then I would know at the time how much to charge them for how many minutes.
Right.
And because they were a big artist, if they were like a new artist, well, you wouldn't charge so much because you're trying to get that new artist any publicity you can.
Right.
So,
is there a standard somewhere about what, or just, I mean,
it's whatever the market will allow.
What about commercials? Do you do those too?
I didn't do. I might have done a couple, but that really wasn't at the time that I was at Polygram. DVDs, well, they hadn't been invented yet, but the new media, they were CDRs and DVRs and all that before there were DVDs, and we were just licensing all this stuff to new media and working with the technology companies. Polygram was owned by Philips, so we would work projects with Philips, so we'd do Eric Clapton, we'd give away an Eric Clapton concert video if you bought the machine, and I work all these deals out with the artists, and then but in making the Cream of Eric Clapton, which is a program that I worked on, I had
Cream of Eric Clapton. That's
I
a
had
good
to
name.
License in a lot of footage, like old footage of him with the small faces or whatever, and so that's where I kind of learned my craft.
He was in the Small Faces?
He had, there was for briefly, you know, but any kind of footage we could find, we found that footage, so I had to license it in. It wasn't like he was with the Small Faces permanently, but we found some footage, so I had to license it in.
Did you know that he played the solo on While My Guitar Gently Weeps?
Yes, I did.
Oh, it's a pretty good solo.
It certainly is.
Right. He was a good...
Did you know George Harrison played the solo on Badge?
No.
Yeah, he did. He did that as a trade-off.
Oh, I didn't know that. But they didn't give each other credit, I don't think.
No, it was like an industry. I don't think they were allowed to in those days without causing problems. Nowadays, everybody's like courtesy of Warner Brothers Records, so-and-so appears on somebody else's album.
Right.
But in those days, they didn't. It was too complicated.
So when did you leave Polygram?
I left. Universal bought Polygram in the late 90s, and I stayed around a couple of years and decided that they were going to give me a payoff, and I decided to take it. I didn't have to, but I decided I'd rather do that and start over.
So you started your own business?
So I came here and I did some freelance work, and then eventually I met my business partner, Dwight Wiles, and we set up Do Right Music.
Do Right Music. And what do you do right now? Do you have steady clients, or do you just come in one at a time, or how does it work? Well,
Dwight is a business manager, so it started off that I would look after the publishing interests of his clients. I was already doing that. He kind of farmed out that business to an independent person, and then I came in on board, so he took back all his clients from the independent person, and we started a company with just his half a dozen clients. I brought in some people, plus I brought in the licensing business, it's just grown.
Do you actually collect the royalties, like administrative publishing?
Yes, so I collect the royalties and I prepare royalty statements. I issue licenses.
How often do you send out royalties?
Well,
is it 4 times a year, or is it monthly, or is it?
Well, the labels are required to send them quarterly, but in most publishing agreements, you're only required to report half yearly.
Okay.
So.
But that's for mechanical rights.
That's
right?
Mechanical, yeah, downloads. I mean, you're streaming anything that comes through a third party.
So you just keep a record of everything they've made
comes in
for 6 months, and then you cut them a check after that.
Yeah, that's how it normally works in a publishing company.
Okay. So let me give you some of these people that you've been working with here. Can I name them?
Sure.
Kathy Mattea.
Yes.
You said Felix Cavalieri.
Yes.
John Vesner, that's Kathy's husband.
Yeah.
And so what do you exactly do for people like that? The same thing you're just telling me?
Yeah, I basically collect money. We're more of what they're calling now in the publishing business. We also offer label services. So John Vesner's putting out a solo album. He's got some songs he's co-written, so I go out and get the licenses from his co-writers, so we make sure that they get paid for every album that he sells. So that's not really what a publisher would normally do, but we also offer those services.
Right. Like I was telling you before, he wrote 2 of the best songs I've ever heard in Nashville. Where Have You Been, and what was the other one again? Who's Gonna Know But Me?
He won a Grammy for Where Have You Been?
Yeah.
It's
a good song.
Yes, that Kathy had a hit with.
Right, I remember. Okay, so now we got you here, and you're in Nashville, and now tell me some of the stuff that you actually collect on. Like, let's go one through royalties. What I'm excuse me. What I'm interested in is internet royalties.
Well, that's a whole new field. You know, since I started in the early 2000s.
Is this SoundScan, or is that what it is?
SoundScan that's a service that's provided that costs thousands of dollars every year to find out how much each album has sold. But you're thinking of Sound Exchange.
Sound Exchange, yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Right. Sound Exchange has nothing to do with music publishing. Sound Exchange pays artists and master owners for internet radio and satellite radio performances.
Right. Do you have anything to do with that?
I don't have anything to do with that, although that's one of the services I provide to my clients. I get them signed up with Sound Exchange so they can collect their artist royalties, but artist royalties have nothing to do with publishing. So Sound Exchange, if you're an independent artist and your stuff's on internet radio or satellite radio, you need to sign up.
What if it's on YouTube?
YouTube is that's separate. I mean, it's not internet radio. I'm talking about Pandora, Live 365, where you also get public performance, minuscule, but this stuff adds up.
Okay.
You know.
So, what about what's that other people? Is it CD Babe? What do people collect? I don't know how to do this.
Okay.
What's the internet thing that everybody does?
Well, there's TuneCore and there's CD Baby. That's if
not
you
CD Baby. This is the one that iTunes.
iTunes, yeah.
Right.
Well, now that's downloads. So if I like a song on your album, but I only like one song, I don't really like the rest of them because it's called Marghie. So I want to download that one so I can pay 99 cents and get that, and I don't have to buy the rest of the album.
But how do you know?
So that in this country, that is collected by whatever label. So say you're on Sony, they collect the money and they pay the publishers their statutory rate for that song, for however many downloads.
And you get paid that, and then you.
And it goes, yeah. So that publishing money comes to me, and I send it on to my writer.
Right. So is it an administrative? Are you like talking like a 50% thing? Are you talking about a 10% thing, or?
As an administrator, there are different ways.
Are you ever just a publisher? Or straight out?
I'm not really a publisher. I don't go out and plug songs.
No, but I meant as far as owning songs. Publishers own the copyright.
Yeah, but I don't. My clients all own their own copyrights, and I do all the admin. So they call me up and say they've got a cut. I go to Universal and say, all right, I need a license for this song, and then they send me the license. Once the license is in place, then they can issue royalties.
All right. So So you're paid through a percentage of what they get.
I'm paid either hourly, sometimes hourly, sometimes a percentage. It depends on the deal.
Okay, so it's either one.
So, I mean, if you got a big hit, it's better to pay hourly. So.
Oh, it's better to pay you hourly, but
me hourly, but.
What about guys who, like me, who don't have big hits?
Well, it depends what you want me to do. Register copyrights and stuff. I normally would charge an hourly rate there too. I mean, I normally charge an hourly rate. I have a few clients that are on a percentage basis.
Right.
But it has to be something there's worth having a percentage of. Otherwise, it's hourly. I guess that's the best way to put it. Even if you went to any kind of administrator, they would do a percentage, but if you didn't meet the cap, like if they didn't earn $10,000 or whatever from you, you would have to pay them the difference.
Right, so tell me the difference between the different performance right organizations, BMI, ASCAP, and CSAC.
Well, they're all varying, depending on what you want. If you're a songwriter coming to town, you want to join one.
You have to join one, because if you don't, you won't get paid unless you join one.
You won't get paid for your public performance, that's true. So you need to make friends with one of their creative people there and see whether you think that they can help you the most. All of them, ASCAP and BMI, they all have these kind of writers boot camps and things, and if you can make friends with one of their reps, then that will help you the most.
Do you ever handle a song that was paid by different organizations, like two writers, one from ASCAP, one from BMI, and both got different amounts in their checks?
Yes, we do that all the time. In fact, that happened to me, and I could not get the difference from the
other one.
The other one, no.
Really?
They were, it'll work out. It's like they don't want to know that. It's really difficult to get. And I'm sure they're out there, no, it's not. We always hand out checks, but it's not.
They used to match it.
They used to match it, but, times are tough.
Right. And CSAC, how does that work differently?
CSAC is a private company. The other two are kind of professional associations, where CSAC's run like a company. And they have, for instance, for worldwide broadcasts, they have hired a company called TuneSat, which monitors all of the television stations. So if there's a song of yours that's out there that isn't even licensed, TuneSat will pick it up. So CSAC will report the findings of TuneSat.
You're talking about on American television?
No, worldwide. They have
agreements. And American?
Yeah, and American, all, yeah.
So if you have something on TV, CSAC's going to find it?
Through TuneSat.
So are we talking about not the
other
major?
twos don't use TuneSat. ASCAP and BMI don't use TuneSat, but CSAC does.
But if you have something on, I know that you get paid for ASCAP BMI for for CBS, NBC, ABC, HBO, all the major things, right? But do you get paid? Well, HBO maybe not, but
Oh yeah, you do.
okay. But do you get paid? But they'll miss a lot of things that are on local television. Does CSAC find the stuff on local television too?
Well, yeah, and so does ASCAP and BMI. You'll see on your BMI statements it'll have local and it'll have national TV broken down if it's coming up that way.
But they miss a lot. They do. It's a random thing
Well,
on local TV.
one of the things
I
I
just want to ask you if this TuneStat thing, does that get everything? Does that catch
They
everything?
claim to. They have a website. You can join as a songwriter, and they will search for you. And if they find unlicensed stuff there, they will negotiate the deal for you for a percentage and get you the sync fees. As far as the PROs go, performing rights organizations, if you're on a TV show, you need to turn the cue sheets into ASCAP or BMI.
Where do you get them from?
You get them. Like if we were doing a musical show right now and I sang 5 songs, then whoever was editing it together would do something called a cue sheet, because he'd have to time it to make sure it fit into this time slot. And then you get a copy of that when you license your songs and file it with BMI or ASCAP.
So if I did a cue sheet for like a show like this, I send it in to one of those organizations, and that would work?
That's,
I'm going to start singing all my songs and forget that.
Well, I don't know if this network is, licensed by.
Right. Say it was a regular television thing.
You know, that's what I do for the Marty Stewart show. I do all the licensing for Marty's TV show. I also do his publishing on the one side.
But you send in cue sheets for it.
But I also license all the songs from his guest performers on the show.
So every time Marty Stewart sings a song on his own show, it's his own song,
he gets money for it.
He's going to get paid for it.
Yes, so I take the cue sheets and I file them all with BMI to make sure that he gets paid every time he sings his own songs on his show.
So the key is having cue sheets.
The key is to get cue sheets. And I was on this LinkedIn discussion with people about cue sheets and set lists.
Let me write that down. Get cue sheets.
And set lists, and saying, well, aren't BMI and ASCAP just supposed to pay you? They can't pay you if they don't know. So
set lists. What do you mean set lists?
Well, if you're playing a live gig, let's say you're opening for Clay Walker.
You can send them in set lists too?
And the set lists go in and say, look, I played with Clay Walker at Bridgestone Arena and I sang these 5 songs, and then they'll go to Bridgestone and get your live performance money. But if they don't know you opened or what you sang, they can't pay you.
Who do you send this to?
You just send it into the cue sheet department or the live performance department. That's all online on all of them.
Really?
Yes. So every licensed establishment will have to pay. Like you'll see some BMI statements, for instance, say live act, opening act, and you'll get $7. And then if it's the star attraction, you'll get like 3 times that or whatever it is, and listing the venues.
What about songs in movies?
Well, that's a different thing, and it's actually changed. It's evolved over the years too. It's not as lucrative as it used to be.
The difference between ending credit movies and songs like ending credits, or some songs that come on the radio all of a sudden and stop, or
Well, okay, in a movie, if your song is used over the opening credits or the closing credits, you get twice as much as something that's used as an incidental music in.
What about if it's just used for? Well, the ending credits will be the whole song, but sometimes, there's
a radio in the background.
Yeah.
Well, there's still have to pay, I don't know what the going rate is, It depends, too, on whether they want to use library. Library music has really cut into the sync licensing for movies now.
And what is library music?
Library music is stuff that some guy at home with a synthesizer or whatever keyboard computer can make sound like a whole orchestra, and it kind of sounds like the kind of feel that you want for the scene, but they don't actually have to pay Dire Straits money. They can just get a sound-alike sort of sounds like that just to set the mood. And to take something from libraries is a lot cheaper. Libraries own the master and also the publishing, and it's a one-stop deal. Right. But if the director really wants a Bob Dylan song in there, then he's going to have to go to Bob Dylan's publisher, who happens to be himself, and Sony, and get 2 separate licenses and negotiate between them.
One for the master,
and
one for
and that is
Bob
figure.
Dylan owns all his old songs too?
He owns all his publishing.
His old ones,
Yes.
like Blowing in the Wind? What, do you have to rebuy them or something?
Well, I don't know what the backup is, but certainly my experience in licensing, I always go to the same place and get Bob Dylan songs. Now, I've never licensed Blowing in the Wind, so I don't know how far back it goes, but certainly goes pretty far back.
Right. Oh. So what about somebody somebody wants one of my songs, and I'm kind of, you're kind of unknown, and you say, and they want to use it for a sync thing for either TV or a commercial. Where do I start?
Well,
Where do you start?
A lot of people come to me and they pay me to look at these contracts that they're giving their songs away. Oh, I'm just going to give it away, because I'm going to become famous. It's going to be in this movie or low budget movie or something.
I mean, giving it for free. Okay.
And so you can do that if you own the master, and just to get the credit at the end of the movie. That's kind of, if they.
What if somebody wants to make a deal and they really want your song, but is it depend on how much they want the song? I think there's plenty of songs around.
Well, that's it. I'm doing a TV series now, and they wanted a certain song. I can't say anything about it because it's not on yet, but they wanted a certain song by a big artist. Well, that proved too expensive, so now they're getting like somebody else to do the theme song. So, and it's kind of silly because you can either have our budget of $20,000 or nothing, and they'd rather take nothing in some cases. So, I mean, there's no set price.
So you have a certain budget for music license?
Yeah, for a TV series, they'll budget a certain amount for how much they want to spend on music, and that's another bargaining chip. So if I say, oh, well, we really want to use your song on this show, but our budget is $1,500.
Is that a budget per show?
Per song, or whatever the budget is set at. I mean, it varies from show to show. I mean, if you license anything on GAC, the money is very small. But they're saying it's promotion because
right.
So it's kind of it's kind of a negligible fee. I mean, it's not small. It's everybody agrees to it because it helps drive downloads or whatever sales. So it's not as much as if you were going to do it on the David Letterman show. Is like 3 times what you'd get for GAC, for instance.
What would happen? Just let's say somebody approached me or not approached me, approached anybody. They want to use a song in a commercial. I know that some songs are $1 million songs, like I remember like a Rock or something like that. That cost a fortune for Chevy, is it like?
Yeah.
Or Tomorrow, I remember for Solar Energy a long time ago was a big song. But what if how do you know where to start on a commercial?
Well, it depends. The other thing is it national? Is it regional? How long is it going to run? I usually like a national commercial, in my experience, is about $300,000.
But like a Rock was like it's being used for years.
And I've heard of artists who got offered $1 million just so they could please use that song because that song perfectly described their product.
Right.
But it just depends. How badly, the producer or the manufacturer wants that song.
Before before Michael Jackson got a hold of the Beatles songs, you never saw the Beatles songs on commercials at all.
Well, that's right, but even now you don't hear you will never hear the Beatles actually singing them. They're always cut, recut.
I think I heard like Revolution or something with the Beatles.
There might be one or two if they'd be willing to pay through the nose, but even if you try to license the Beatles, it's more expensive.
Because you got to license the master,
right? So
from
it's
Capitol or EMI, whoever owns them. And then you also have to license from.
You have to license. You can license from Sony, who administers that publishing catalog, but it's a lot cheaper to send some unknowns in to cover the song for $1,000 than it is to try to spend another couple of $100,000 to get the Beatles version.
Even if they cover the song in its the exact same arrangement, isn't that kind of a problem?
They're not allowed to use sound-alikes. If you cover the song, it has to be absolutely clear it is not somebody trying to sound like Paul McCartney.
Right.
So that's what they usually have, like choruses, like all those Target ads. They have just a group of singers singing the songs.
Are you involved in anything to do with copyright recapture?
I have. That's not really my area of expertise.
Right, you've never had that problem.
I usually, I've gone to a couple of seminars, but I normally refer them to a lawyer that I know that specializes in that.
Right. So you do this every single day, right?
Yeah.
Every day. This is like.
I do every day, yeah, and I enjoy it. I mean, I do lots of different things. You know, some days I just enter royalty reports into my system, and other days I'm on the phone going, "Where's my money?" Because I've agreed to a license and then I've never seen any money for it, or you know, hey, I see you've got this song and an album, never seen any money for it. You know, it just depends on the day.
What's the recourse? What can you do about it?
Well,
just
normally, well, no, I mean, normally they cooperate and say, you know, you send them a license, they send some money back.
Right. So what's the future? We have a couple minutes left. What's the future of the internet? What can you see? How can you see more income being generated through the internet?
Well, you know, I went to this conference up in New York, the New Music Seminar, and their big catchword at the moment is the topic they want to talk about is making things easier. So there's going to be a lot more blanket licensing, which is like the Napster thing or the YouTube thing, where you just kind of get to an agreement with the internet service and or each station. Like YouTube, if you get like 500 plays on YouTube, you might get a penny as a writer, depending on how many writers are on the song.
Right.
So there's going to be a lot more of those catch-all things, and hopefully as it progresses we can get those blanket licenses up.
It'll make it easier, but it'll be less money for the songwriters.
Well, it's already, at least it's some money for the songwriters now. At least they're recognizing that they have to pay them.
Right. Oh, well, anyway, we're going to get going. We're done. We're done.
Oh, well,
anyway,
thank you for having me.
My guest here was Marghie Evans, who from, what's the name of that company?
Do Right Music.
Do Right Music, and she does publishing, administration, and licensing. And we'll be back next week with another edition of Mind Your Own Music Business.